evening, everyone, and welcome to our November 2nd meeting of the Board of Education. Would you please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, may we have a motion, please, to move out of executive session? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
You've had a chance to take a look at the agenda tonight. I'm unaware of any particular alterations or changes. May we have then a motion to accept the agenda as read? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, agenda stands. Now, the Board of Education invites the public to comment on matters regarding the school district. The public comment section of the meeting is a time for the Board of Education to listen. As a courtesy, we ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Comments naming specific personnel should be addressed privately or in writing to the board in order to protect the individual's rights. And matters that would infringe upon student privacy will not be addressed in this public forum. With that being said, is there anyone tonight who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to our student liaisons. Come on up. Sam, would you like to go first?
Alrighty, I will start things off. Happy November, everybody. Can you believe it's already the 2nd of November? It's gone by pretty fast. So not much has happened since, the big homecoming and all of that. We're finishing up our sports season, and we only have a couple things that happened within Thomas. We have our preparation for our spring musical. Pippin is actually starting now, which that's very far away, but it's going to be a great one. Auditions were last week, and we already have our cast. And our fall play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, is going on right now. We're getting ready. And so yesterday, we also had Revoiced, an a cappella group, to perform for the Best Buddies, and they sang, and that was a great time. So I heard that they had a lot of fun, and we're very thankful that they came to sing. So we also have marching band. They had a fantastic season. Everybody's with Schrader and everybody. It was a great season, and they ended up placing 3rd at the New York State Championships last weekend with a whopping 87.35, which was their highest score of the season. So that was absolutely phenomenal. So with our fall sports, it's begun to wind down, as I said before. The last few weeks have been filled with sectionals, plenty of sectionals. Our girls soccer made it to the quarterfinals, and they actually lost a tough game with Schrader, and that was 1-0. Boys soccer won their quarterfinal game in a sudden victory in overtime with a 3-2 win, and they played the semifinals against McQuaid. They were losing 1-0, but McQuaid is ranked 1st in New York and 2nd in the nation, so that was quite a challenge. After beating Hilton in a quarterfinal, girls volleyball lost a close one in the quarterfinals to defeating sectional champs Penfield, so that was pretty amazing. And girls field hockey, just on Monday, won their sectional final in overtime, 2-1 over Penfield. They got the brick. They are going to play their regionals in Williamsville this Saturday at 4. I mean, that's far away, but if you want to go and support them, that would be great. And cross country has their sectionals this weekend at Wayne. Many of our runners have qualified. And the swimmers last night are going to their sectionals at the Aquatic Center on Friday, so come and support them if you like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Winter sports are going to start up on November 6th.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep.
Erin, welcome. Tell us about Schrader.
Hi, so I'm Erin Murphy, and I'm co-president of Student Council with Natalie Hirsch. She's actually unable to come tonight because she's on our senior trip, but we'll both be here next time. I first wanted to apologize for not being able to come last meeting. We both had our varsity tennis sectional match. We actually didn't win, but we made it to the finals against Victor, so that was fun. Early decision and early action for colleges were due a couple days ago, so seniors are starting to apply. Our juniors just took the PSAT and are getting ready to take their SATs in December or January. Our Prism concert happened a couple weeks ago, which includes our orchestra, band, and chorus. Our play, Les Mis, is starting audition soon, and our girls soccer team made it to the semifinals and was ranked 3rd and got 2nd in their division. Our football team also had an amazing season, going 6-2 and was 1st in their division. Our winter sports are about to begin while our fall sports are all ending right now. We also had our Friday night live show, which is completely student written and student directed, and there was a big turnout from our students this year. As I mentioned earlier, our seniors are in Boston right now on their senior trip, and they get many exciting opportunities like the Celtics game or the Blue Man Group. Today they went to the Duck Tour, and right now they're actually on their dinner cruise. We had a very successful homecoming week with our Hollywood-themed dance at the end of the week, and it led up to the football game, where it was actually catered by food trucks, so that was a lot of fun. Everyone loves homecoming week, and everyone's so excited and happy. We had a lot of dress-up days, and everyone participated in it, so it was a really great year this year. Our Link crew just had a freshman breakfast with apple cider and donuts, and it's usually hard to get the freshmen to participate in these things, but we had a good turnout this year. And International Club just had their annual pumpkin painting with Madame Rayen, and that's always a fun time. And the first quarter is coming to an end, and so far it's a really good year. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, I plan it.
50, 100, 200 kids?
We usually get about 400.
Wait a minute, 400 kids showed up at the dance?
Yeah.
So dances are back? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because there was a time when,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
You'll hear about the Willing dance
Whoa.
more than they've ever had.
Okay, good, good.
I remember it was a struggle and willing to try to get those kids to go. They were too cool
Yeah,
as 8th
yeah,
graders to go to that.
If you could just get those cool kids to go, then everybody else would show up.
Thank you so much.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, let's hear from WTA.
Oh, Allison's here. But
I know, I see that. I was going to.
Good evening, Board. WTA, I'd like to remind everyone that Election Day is Tuesday, and my last words on the Constitutional Convention. In 1967, the last Constitutional Convention was held in New York, cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. 50 years later, the price tag is estimated to be in the hundreds of millions. We can amend our Constitution without spending a single penny. Did you know that the New York State Constitution guarantees everyone in the state the right to a free public education? Or that some of our most environmentally sensitive areas, like the Adirondacks and the Catskills, are safeguarded? So many of these things are valued most and taken for granted about living in this great state are guaranteed by our state constitution. Please vote no for the Constitutional Convention on the back of the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And let's hear from our PTSA, Allison.
So, hello everyone.
Hello, Allison.
We have been busy lately. Lots been going on, but I'm going to stick to the positive and the high points. So, we just held our prescription drug drop-off. It was in partnership with WEN, which is the Webster Health Education Network, the Town of Webster, and the Webster Police Department. And I am really excited to report that the Webster Police Department collected 710 pounds of prescription drugs. So just to give some perspective on this, over the last 8 years, typically the DEA collects around 350 pounds on a drive. So we clearly doubled that. So we're excited. So this was a great partnership. And for those that aren't aware of it, one of our focuses in the PTSA is to build our partnerships out this year. We're tied in with WEN. And last Monday, we met with CCSI, Amy Shield-Jones, to kind of talk about other things we can do in terms of drug education, mental health education and awareness, and programming opportunities that we can tap into and bring to our families and educators and students here in Webster. We'll hear more. We don't have a great plan in place yet, but we are going to set up a book reading, and we'll announce that. I'll leave you that little tidbit out there, and we'll announce more about that later. The next thing I want to talk about is our membership goal. We're hoping to get 1,200 members in this membership drive. We are currently 76% of the way there, so we are having another push. We're encouraging everyone to get out there and buy their memberships. We have some great prizes coming up next week that we'll have drawings on, like a YMCA membership. So that is at our PTSA meeting next Wednesday, so you need to buy your membership before next Wednesday. Let's see. New York State PTA is urging everyone to vote no on the Constitutional Convention, so we've been pushing that out as well the past few weeks in leading up to this election. For those that don't know, we here in Webster, we won a grant. It's the National PTA and Mathnasium STEM Plus Family Grant. We won $1,000. So we are in the process of rolling it out to all the schools. Each school is going to have a say in how to use their portion of that money. So you'll see that starting with State Road shortly. I think it's in the next few weeks. They're going to hold their first STEM night, math STEM night. And I think the last thing that I want to call out is that we have set up an online system to notify teens of volunteer opportunities with PTSA. So a lot of our middle school students and high school students need to get volunteer hours. And it's on this thing called Remind app, and it will push out a notification. If they sign up for it, it pushes out a notification, and they can take a look through to see which volunteer opportunity will work with their schedule. So we're going to be pushing that out as well. We'll be talking about it at all of our building meetings this month. And I really hope the teens sign up. We have a really hard time connecting teens that need volunteer experience with the opportunities we have. Which we have probably
teens or more volunteer opportunities?
Probably these days more opportunities than we do with teens. Usually what happens is it's all those PTSA families that have kids in the middle school and senior high school that take advantage of it. But it's really open to anybody, so we don't want it just to be like the PTSA volunteer club kind of thing with teens. So I think that's it. Stacy and I have hit every school so far, at least one meeting at every school. We've learned a lot. We see some areas that we can maybe inject some new ideas, some new energy, and our focus right now is going to be on the secondary education, because when we walk around and we talk to folks, no one's quite clear on how PTSA fits best in that secondary arena, because the student councils do so much. So one of the things we're teasing out is whether or not there's a partnership that we can realize there with the student counselors, maybe a win-win. We'll have some people who have done a lot of things that can mentor student council, but yet let them drive the car, so to speak. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Our instructional report tonight involves special education. Now, the special education department has been working on changing the focus of the delivery from separate classes to inclusion into general classes for the students. Now, this is best demonstrated by the integrated co-taught class. Now, this means a general education teacher and a special education teacher jointly provide instruction to the class that includes both students with and students without disabilities to meet the diverse learning needs of students. So Colleen, you have a number of people up there today, or is it Marjorie's going to do the introductions? All right, then it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cefaletto, Mr. Gamina, and board members for having us here. We are very excited to share the work of the Special Education Department, and here tonight to present with me are Colleen Armstrong, Co-Director of Special Education, Carol Gillis, Special Education Teacher on Special Assignment, and Larry Wall, Coordinator of Library, Secondary ELA, and Strategic Initiatives. The Special Education Department supports students from preschool through the ages of 21. And beyond our special education teachers, our service providers include speech language therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and music therapists. We're also very fortunate to have the expertise of an assistive technology specialist, an audiologist, and a teacher of the visually impaired, as well as adaptive physical education teachers. Students participate in special events and activities with their peers, both in school and in our community. While tonight we will be focusing on one portion of our program, we wanted to start with some images of our students across a variety of settings. No matter where we are compassionately connected, joyfully engaged, and always learning.
A little, not a lot.
As you can see, our students are involved and connected across a wide variety of settings and activities throughout our district. It is always our goal to consider the whole child and to partner with their families. While our department has a wide array of services supporting students in many settings, tonight we will be focusing on integrated co-teaching. You will see how the board goals are reflected in all of our work related to providing students with disabilities access to curriculum, meaningful opportunities for individual growth, and opportunities for our staff to develop their skills in reaching all learners. Our demographics provide a big picture look at our programs, services, and where our students are educated and their progress towards graduation. So on this slide here, you can see the total number of students with disabilities, 784, and the breakdown of where our students attend school. As you can see, the majority of our students attend schools within the Webster School District. You'll notice that our numbers of classified students have remained fairly consistent over the past 6 years. So this is a picture of our continuum of services, and we have a full continuum of services with related services, resource room, and consultant teacher services at all of our schools. This middle column right here, this shows where each of our integrated co-teaching classes are located, and we have integrated co-teaching classes at every grade level, K through 12. Our special class settings, and these are for students who require specialized programs outside of the general education setting, include our 15-1 program, our 12-1-1, our 12-1-4, and our 8-1-1. Some of our students attend BOCES programs. And the last column here represents students who attend private schools outside of the district. Yeah. This slide shows the graduation rates of students with disabilities over the past 3 years. These graduation rates represent only those students who graduated in 4 years with their cohort and who earned a local or a Regents diploma. It's important to recognize that some of our students may need extra time to earn their diploma, and other students whose disabilities are more significant have earned a Skills and Achievement Commencement credential or a Career Development and Occupational Studies credential. Those graduates are not reflected in these percentages, but we recognize that those students have worked hard to achieve their personal best. Integrated Co-Teaching, or ICT, is one program that supports these increasing graduation rates for students with disabilities.
So the power of 2 teachers in the room is really crucial in providing specialized instruction in inclusive environments. Tonight, we're pleased to share our story of ICT from implementation and our journey to sustainability. Many of you will recall that we first added ICT classes to our continuum of services 5 years ago, but the journey began prior to that as we responded to changes in graduation rates and looked at our data for students with disabilities. We compared our achievement results to those of other districts, and we saw that those districts who had more inclusive practices were outperforming us. We then began to do research into best practice, receive training and coaching from national consultants before the first ICT class opened in Webster. When we were last here to talk about ICT, we were at the beginnings of implementation, and through the hard work of dedication of our staff, we've made really great strides. So what do we expect from our ICT teams? Mike, as you said in the beginning, it's co-teaching is 2 teachers working together, simultaneously teaching a heterogeneous group of students. When you go into an ICT classroom, you're going to see a range of students, from those who are very talented in that particular subject or skill to those who are receiving special education services because they are struggling with that skill. They're working and learning together. The teaching team designs the instruction that meets the needs of everyone in the room. They're able to cover more material in more depth and in less time because they're able to use small, flexible groups and personalized learning activities. Through careful planning and collaboration, our co-teachers make a fundamental impact on the teaching and learning for all their students. So in this slide, you can see integrated co-teaching was added to our continuum of services in 2013, and we've significantly increased the number of ICT classes since then. We've gone from 10 to our current of 75. While this has been happening, we have not increased the classification rate of our students with disabilities, but what we have done is provide our students access to grade level standards and teachers with specialized content knowledge. Students are learning in inclusive environments from their teachers and from each other. This graphic shows how the previous slide translates into very specific classes across our district. One thing to notice is the large jump from the 13-14 school year to the 14-15 school year. We had not planned on moving that quickly in adding ICT classes, but our teachers and our administrators came to us and asked to shift at many more grade levels. With their enthusiasm and commitment, we were able to bring inclusive settings to many more students. So when we added ICT to our continuum of services, we were committed to collecting data to ensure that we were improving outcomes for all the students. But beyond achievement data, we also see benefits related to engagement with peers. Our students no longer feel isolated or disconnected from each other. We see an increase in the development of self-advocacy, coping skills, independent skills, and social skills by having peer models and that access to higher level thinking. This happens while they still receive the specialized instruction that they need. These benefits are just as, if not more so important, as the achievement data that we'll share with you. The data points we're going to look at this evening are directly tied to the quality improvement plan that we engaged in with BOCES for 2 years at the beginning of ICT implementation. Even though we're no longer a part of that process, we continue to monitor the data connected to the goals set by that team. So this slide shows the MAP scores of students in reading, which gives us an overall snapshot of how ICT impacts all students. We specifically look at the percent of students who meet or exceed their projected growth score. So we look at the performance of all students, which you'll see in blue, And we compare that with the performance of students with disabilities in an ICT class, which is the orange, and the students without disabilities in an ICT class, which is in red. While we've been pleased with the data for our students with disabilities, we've been consistently impressed with the data for students without disabilities, as they're outperforming their peers who are not in an ICT classroom. As you can see in this slide, the MAP results in math are similar to those in reading. These assessments have been a consistent measure that now provides us with longitudinal data and a growing sample size. ICT instruction is designed to meet diverse learning needs of all students, and we can see the positive impact at elementary and middle school. So next we'll take a look at high school. When looking at the high school data, we were focused on our students with disabilities and how they had done in an ICT class in comparison to the 51 classes that we used to have. Students with disabilities are achieving local and regions credit at a higher rate than in the past. So in the graph on the left, you'll see the results from 2016 and from 2017 on the right. You should compare the red graph bar, which is students who receive ICT services who scored a 65 or above on their Regents exam, to the blue bar, where historically our 15-1 students scored a 65 or above. And then similarly compare the green, which is our ICT students who scored a 55 or higher, to the yellow bar, which are students who were in 15-1 who scored a 55 or higher. Students with disabilities have that safety net option where they can receive local credit for scoring a 55 or higher on a Regents exam. So having that opportunity to learn with and from their peers has helped them master more skills, and in turn leads to higher achievement results. And none of that would happen if we hadn't the great staff that we have and the high quality ongoing professional learning and support we've been able to provide to our ICT teams. And Carol and Larry will share that part of the story.
So monitoring student data in many ways ensures that our instructional practices are effective. That, along with feedback from our teachers, has helped us to determine what professional learning has been needed by teams. We have been providing professional learning for our ICT teams since the inception of the program. After a group of educators were inspired by their attendance in a leadership institute at Syracuse University in 2011, Webster partnered with Pittsford schools to help develop our integrated co-teaching program. We initially worked with Ann Benninghoff, who is a national consultant, and then we worked with BOCES staff to continue our professional learning. In addition, 2 TOSA positions, myself and Dan Marcello, were added to provide ongoing support to our staff. 18 days of professional learning have been provided directly from our Webster teachers to other Webster teachers. 28 days of professional learning have been facilitated by outside and national consultants, including the Syracuse Leadership Institute, Ann Benninghoff, the Bureau of Educational Research, and Train the Trainer and BOCES. 45 district learning opportunities. They've included 24 learning walks, 10 learning sessions dedicated to the differences between ICT and consultant teacher services, and a video introducing integrated co-teaching to all 11 buildings. And 166. As of this year, we have had 100 general education and 66 special education teachers who have been trained in the integrated co-teaching model. All of this adds up to a commitment to sustain this program and the instructional practices associated with it. For the first time this year, we have included non-ICT teachers and to participate in our professional learning. In addition, through opportunities such as Teachers Teach Teachers on Superintendent's Conference Day, during our summer Transforming Learning through Technology camps, through flipped learning hours, special education TOSAs, myself and Dan, have been able to and will continue to provide professional learning opportunities to any staff member in the district. Staff members from a wide range of disciplines are now participating in our learning opportunities that go way beyond the numbers that I just spoke about. As leaders of the professional learning, it is a little bit awkward to talk about the impact of our work. So we thought it would be better if you heard it directly from one of our participants.
When I was asked to teach an ICT class last fall, I really didn't know what to expect. I've done CT and I work well with others, but I didn't know if I would be good at dividing up responsibilities equally and sharing my teaching so much. However, the training that I received prior to last school year was excellent in terms of expectations and teaching strategies. Last school year, I had one ICT US History class, one CT US History class, and one regular US History class. After planning several ICT lessons, it didn't take me long to realize that what was effective for that specific ICT class can actually be beneficial for all my US history classes, ICT or not ICT. I feel that my lessons are now better organized as a result of planning for ICT instructions. I use more small grouping strategies in all my classes and break up my lessons more effectively. Without question, I am a better teacher for having taught in an ICT setting.
Collaboration between departments has far-reaching impact for all of our students. We started to build new connections between general and special education when we first formed ICT teams in Webster and have continued to strengthen this important partnership. As Carol just mentioned, this year, in addition to our 112 ICT teachers, we invited general ed teachers who were not part of an ICT team, as well as secondary administrators, to participate in this semester's instructional workshop, which focused on creating access to standards for all students. The goal of this professional development is a perfect example of the cross-pollination that's been happening since we began the ICT program. By offering students multiple strategies to access the standards, all students benefit by being able to choose the strategy that's personally most engaging. A specific example of this cross-pollination is the use of learning menus. A learning menu is simply a structure that provides students with a variety of options to engage in learning around the same learning target. This provides different opportunities to access learning and demonstrate knowledge. Rob DeRose, who joins us tonight, was an ICT team member last year and is a teacher on special assignment this year, and he used these menus with his students with great success. This year, he's shared the strategy with more than 80 third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers and has received positive feedback. Beyond this, he's developed instructional videos to share with an even wider audience. What we're finding clearly and consistently is the strategies and techniques found in the ICT setting increase engagement and achievement for all learners. These learning menus are an example of that truth. Similar to the organic spread of the learning menus, training focused on interventions to help all learners succeed is reaching a wider audience as well. For example, 93 people experienced cross-discipline professional learning in the areas of reading and math interventions. Participants included special ed teachers, ESL teachers, literacy specialists, speech-language therapists, and teaching assistants. Trainings and learning opportunities such as these would have been historically viewed as opportunities for special ed teachers only. However, with the advancement of the ICT classroom model, a larger audience is experiencing the effectiveness of such programs, strategies, and practices. Research shows that providing students with disabilities opportunities to learn in the classroom alongside their grade-level peers increases engagement, academic achievement, and, I would argue, fosters essential skills for all students in the room. The ICT program has promoted a learning environment that adapts and adjusts to all learners and their learning styles, creating classrooms where students truly can be joyfully engaged each day.
Our integrated co-teaching program has provided an environment of compassionately connected people. We use the resources, strategies, and professional collaboration to foster an environment that promotes well-being, achievement, and success for every student. The added bonus is the transforming and lasting professional growth that occurs for the teaching team that has the opportunity to work in an ICT classroom. The bottom line is our district's ICT program is succeeding, and is promoting our vision every day. Thank you, and are there any questions for us?
I just had one. When you showed the statistics for the graduation rate, you said that was for 4 years. Do any of our students with special needs take the opportunity to stay an extra year, or
Yes.
do they?
Yes.
And is that something you encourage our students, or
we would
depends
work-
on the situation?
Yes, we work individually with each family and each student to determine their, how they can be most successful to earn their diploma.
Okay, thanks.
I just had one question. On the one slide with the maps, was there there was a decline overall? Is that the year that everything shifted in testing, or?
Well, that's the NWA test, so that wouldn't have shifted. It's a variety of different reasons why, and in particular, the group the year prior had done extremely well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and I just have one comment. Not only this ICT, I see it personally daily. It doesn't only benefit the special ed kids. It truly helps grow compassionate students from kindergarten all the way through high school. So I thank you for that.
I just want to say, I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that I'm really pleased with your deliberate and flexible planning. I'm pleased with, it's not just the outcomes that are important, but it's the process that's used. I like how inclusive it is, and I also like that it's being embraced by more and more teachers. I just think that's awesome. It's so good for our staff and our students to be exposed to, a variety of things. So thank you very much.
Marjorie, one of the first slides you had showed Webster's numbers remaining fairly flat. Just a gut sense, is the state numbers looking the same, or is there a trend up or down, or is the state also staying fairly flat in terms of total numbers being classified?
I don't have the percentages, the state percentage, but I would suspect that they're staying similar as our numbers.
Sometimes it depends on the area
Of the state.
The state.
That you're looking
Oh,
at.
for sure.
Yeah.
Have we ever surveyed the ICT teachers about their feelings about the program?
Mm-hmm. Carol, you want to talk about that?
Carol, talk to me about that.
I'll try. I've been a TOSA since the beginning, working with the program, and we frequently survey the ICT teachers to help us develop our professional learning, as well as to help us kind of redesign our program as needed. And we've used some of their feedback specifically in the next round of training. We asked them to give advice to new teams, and that was, one form. Traditionally, the feedback has been extremely positive. We have had some negative feedback, and it's been pretty isolated, which I think any walk in life is going to have positives and negatives. We are consistently and constantly collecting data back from our teams.
I co-taught. You've invented this since I left. I was probably the worst co-teacher in the history of mankind. I taught secondary, and I could not relinquish the controls of that classroom. And a poor human being was assigned to work with me for a year and suffered under that relationship. God bless her. She'll remain nameless, but she's moved on to wonderful success with the next partner. The next partner was much more capable of flexibility and creativity, whereas, man, you give me the front of that classroom, and I wasn't going to relinquish the front of that classroom. So I have respect for the people that can make it work. What happens if a teacher comes to you and says, this ain't working? What's next for that relationship?
So I'll say that part of our training isn't just about instructional strategies, but it is about how to be a successful team member. We dedicate half of our training to that, and the other half when we are starting out with our teams. The other half is about the instructional practices. So there is a huge recognition of how important that partnership is, as well as time spent. We also have reflection tools for teams to use throughout their practices. We have had a couple of instances where teachers felt that it wasn't a good fit for them. And that's why there have been 166 teachers trained, but there are currently 112 practicing. People have retired, people have changed jobs, things of that nature. So we try to really recognize and work with all staff members, I want to say, though I have nothing to do with staff assignments, but it's constantly one of those pieces of trying to do what's best for everyone.
At the secondary level, that other headache of certification comes into play, and sometimes it's just the nature of the draw that, oh, this year you will be ICT, and the personalities have got to work well together, and it's so. I commend the people that are making it work, but I'm just nervous that there's times when it doesn't work the way we want it to, and I don't know what you do about that, especially when certification causes those people to perhaps continue to have to work together.
We spend a lot of time, our building administrators really looking and working and talking with their teams and what ICT is about. And as ICT has been a part of our culture, people learn about it and they feel like they want to try it. We also, when we have our ICT teams and they come in July, or when they're brand new, we don't make that expectation that everything's going to be perfect from the get-go. That this is going to take a while to build this relationship, to get good at it. And that's what we have our TOSAs, not only in the special ed department, but as Larry and Rob are a testament to, from our general ed colleagues, to be able to support them. And they go in and they do lessons with them and they help with planning. And we do all those things. And sometimes, maybe next year we move on to a different partnership. But that isn't as often as you would probably think it was.
Can I ask one more, Mike? Can I keep going? I can't see your name tag. Is it Colleen?
Colleen,
It was very smooth to point it the other way.
There you go.
I can't call it. You had a slide up there that showed percent success, and it showed the ICT students with learning disabilities improving. And then there was a math slide that was 3 through 7 or 7,
Yeah.
which showed the non-disabled students in the ICT class
yes.
who were in that ICT class, and it showed success in reading and slight dip in math. Do you have anything on secondary?
So
Like when you're getting into content specific, because that's where I really get nervous.
Yeah, it's really focused on, we looked at the number of students who were able to pass those Regents exams. And I don't know with the slide, if you look at the general education, we're not losing students who are general education students, are not suddenly not passing those classes or not passing their Regents exams.
I would love to see if those numbers dipped, though. Because
I don't have the numbers, but that's
my
something that we
concern
could
is
look
that
at.
we've got general population in that ICT class. They've got to fill out the rest of the seats in that class. And depending on how that ICT lesson is working, those students could either be understimulated or if it's working beautifully, pulled out into a small group and perhaps enriched. But
Well, and I think that that's an important piece that people don't think about. When they think about ICT is, this is about just the students with disabilities and making sure that they get what they need. We are very specific in our training with our teams. It's about meeting the range of students within your classroom. You have to think about your highest to your lowest and everyone in between. And so when you design your lesson, you need to make sure that you are enriching those that need to be enriched, and you're supplementing those and providing accommodations for those that need that to access the curriculum.
so if you combine that with what I said about my own inadequacies earlier,
Yeah.
I struggle with how am I going to do both of that, and obviously that's where the co-teaching comes into play.
So,
But
if I could speak to that, one of the points that we try to make at the beginning of team development is that we have been charged with differentiating instruction for years. But the ability to differentiate with one teacher in the room is far more difficult than the ability to differentiate instruction with 2 teachers in the room. So it is far easier to make that wide range of learning opportunities a reality in a class where there are 2 teachers.
But on a secondary level, my differentiation was happening because the enriched kids were taking the class in 8th grade, and so my
So that was
classroom was a
tracking.
very homogeneous group of kids. So I was being handed that snowball, which they were all those snowflakes were the same. But if I put in 6 or 10 kids that had learning disabilities, it would have been a much different challenge for me. And so
I've seen a couple ICT classes, and I could not identify which student was which. You can't tell.
see, we
We
talk
invite
about
you
doing
in.
a tech. We talk
Right.
about doing a tech. I'd love to
Yeah, yes.
invite me in, put it on the list.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see some. I'd like to see some secondary classrooms. And
So let me-
I'll go to Urbanski's class. And,
The kids that thought were ICT, and they're actually doing gen ed.
Right. Let me give you just one quick example of an English classroom that I went into. They were doing a lesson on mice and men, and it was a reading and a writing day, and there were 2 teachers in the room, and some kids were reading on their Chromebook, others were listening to it, some were reading the paper book, others were working on a writing assignment that was connected to the reading. And I asked the teachers about it, and I said, well, who's using what? And they said, whatever works best for them. And so that was kind of my aha moment, because all of a sudden, the teachers, because of the flexibility and design of that partnership, they made all of these options available to all of the students in the room. So it wasn't that the traditional students were reading the book and the students who needed to listen were listening. Some wanted to listen and others didn't, and it just worked great. I mean, that was just such a great example for me.
gotcha. I like that example. Thank you.
If I could just ask one more. Do teachers volunteer to be part of the ICT team, or do we ever assign teachers?
We've had both.
And how's the success rate when we assign versus volunteer? Do you have that kind of data?
One example I will give is this year a 2nd grade teacher was assigned to ICT, and she said to me after the first week of school, Carol, this was the easiest opening I've ever had in my life. Why are you guys keeping this a secret? And then I ran across the hall to a 4th grade teacher who was ICT last year, and this year those kids are in 5th grade. So she's teaching just a typical gen ed classroom. And she's like, Carol, I'm dying here. I can't believe how much it changed my life. So whether you're assigned or whether you volunteer, your experience may be different depending on your own personality. And I think everybody comes out of it learning something about themselves, about teaching, about kids. And that's, I think, something that we can just consider ourselves lucky to be able to say that.
I just have one question. There was a slide that had the classrooms, the number of classrooms per grade level. So how do you prepare or predict how many classrooms are going to be in any given grade level? And then how do you deal with that, being able to be flexible? You're watching enrollment, you're watching all sorts of different factors to be able to prepare for that.
Hard to believe, but we're about to, in another few weeks, send out to our special ed teachers like we do every year. What are your projections for your students? And we start early in looking at our numbers and thinking about that. And within those classrooms, too, in terms of enrollment, we do save seats. So, for example, we try to stick with the best practice of up to 8 students with the disabilities in an ICT classroom. By regulation, you can have up to 12, but we try to stay with the 8. Say we have 6, we'll save 2 seats because there's always, we just placed new entrants this morning, so there's always new kids coming, or a kid who pops up that suddenly needs something. So, we have to be flexible in that, but we do a lot of planning.
So basically, you're thinking 1/3, 2/3?
Yep, that is our goal.
Thank you. Excellent. Appreciate it.
In the opening video, we saw some unified basketball. And many of you didn't see unified basketball, you didn't see it because it really is a great experience to see that. And Bill, I'm going to totally echo your comments about the fact that the co-teaching has to have, it's almost an arranged marriage. You have to have that perfect match up. Otherwise, you're going to have some really difficult things. So, there's a lot of emphasis on staffing there.
Is that a staff position you're thinking of? Someone that would arrange marriages?
Next.
Just Some sort of computer data. Please fill out this form.
And I'll get in trouble if we have administrators, so.
Oh, we've got answers for you there. In your executive summary, you mentioned the flip model. I know some of our board members do not understand that. Could you explain that and how it helps?
Yeah.
Basically, this year across the district, where we traditionally had meetings every month by department or by building, this year we're basically having 5 traditional months and 5 months where teachers can select the professional learning that best suits their needs. So we're calling that flexible learning plan FLIP. So that is what FLIP is. I offered a FLIP opportunity at Plank South this week, and there were 35 or so teachers who attended.
So this is just after school at closing time for an hour?
It can be before school or after school during regular meeting times. So
who's coming in before school?
Elementary teachers. So 7:30 to 8:30 was for elementary teachers.
I picked the wrong line to get.
That's right, that's right. If it's elementary in the afternoon, we do 3:45 or 4 till 5 o'clock. So secondary is usually 2:45 to 3:45. So, yeah.
So hopefully that was explained. Well, thank you very much. It was a very good report. And board members, may we have a motion to accept the special ed report, please? Thank you. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carm, your superintendent's report.
Yep. Thank you very much. Before I start my superintendent's report, during the special ed report, they had mentioned Rob DeRose as a TOSA, and Mike leaned over and said something snide to me about, oh man. And just want to remind the board that during last year's budget process, we just, it's not a new position, it's actually one of our, we took a position from literacy specialist at the elementary level, and we knew that Rob's specialty and also his emphasis this year would be on elementary literacy, and he works with Holly McDonald, providing professional development, co-teaching, so it's not a new position, and it was approved by the board during the budget process last year. So just want to make sure that
We're going to ask a lot more questions this year.
So, superintendent's report. As we prepare to wrap up the first quarter of the 17-18 school year, I wanted to thank our students for their continued diligence in their studies. I love visiting our schools each week, and it is a joy for me to see our kids working so hard during the school day, whether they are attending, and they continue to work hard after that last bell rings, whether it's attending play practice, spending extra time rehearsing with a special music ensemble, or heading to sports practice. Our kids manage their time well inside and outside of the classroom, and I wanted to give a special shout out to a fine group of student athletes whose time and dedication on the field resulted in a Class A Section 5 championship earlier this week. So on Monday night, congratulations to the Lady Titans of Webster Thomas field hockey team as they brought home a Section 5 championship. We're very proud of them, and they have their regional game in Buffalo on Saturday. I wanted also to recognize another hardworking group of people, your Board of Education. Last week was New York State School Boards Association School Board Recognition Week, and I wanted to publicly thank this board for the time and energy that they devote to supporting our students, families, faculty, staff, and community members here in Webster. You are truly the voice of our community when it comes to public ed, and I am thankful to each of you and the breadth of the experience that you bring to the board. And as I was doing some math, around the board right now, around this table, among the 6 board members, there's 155 years of educational experience. So a century and a half of experience. That's an awful lot of experience. So, well, Mike is 102 of those years, with the last 82 questioning TOSAs and his superintendent. But other than that, it's okay. So speaking of being fortunate, I recently had the opportunity to attend a neuroscience and mindfulness conference and wanted to reflect on a few takeaways from that amazing experience. We are certainly a district that's ahead of the curve and also doing some wonderful things around mindfulness and and also being right there on the cutting edge of brain science and brain research. And one of the key takeaways that I took was there were two speakers. One was Ariana Huffington from Huffington Post fame. She and a scientist were discussing the science behind sleep. And I know that we've had these discussions before, and I know that other districts around Monroe County have had the discussions about the importance of sleep and how it relates to the physical well-being of not only us, but certainly of our students, and also the social and emotional well-being of our students as well. And when you look at that research that was presented at that conference, and also the research that we have just begun to look at as a board and certainly as a district around ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, and for lack of a better term, the baggage that all of us carry, but certainly our students when they come into our classrooms, as we get to know them and their story and not quite knowing all that they bring in, all of these adverse experiences that they may have, it really does make a difference on their brain chemistry and whether or not they're ready to learn. Sleep is also a huge factor. So we have, and before I talk about what I was really thinking about as I was listening to this research on sleep and on ACEs, shortly thereafter, I returned from New York City from this conference. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there had been something in the paper about a U of R announcement about a study that U of R had just been granted around brain development among our adolescents. It's called the ABCD study. It's Adolescent Brain and Cognitive Development Study. And it is the largest long-term study of its kind in the United States. It is the most well-funded study ever granted by the National Institute of Health. It's going to help, this is a 10-year study. It's going to help scientists understand how childhood experiences like sports, video games, sleep patterns, medicine, and adverse childhood experiences will affect brain development. So the U of R is inviting families from across our area, not just in Webster. But they're inviting families with 9 and 10-year-olds to participate over the next 10 years. And the children participating, and there is a stipend for the families because mom and dad have to give up a day of work. It will involve 1 to 2 visits to U of R each year, and there will be an MRI done each year as well, so they can study, again, this brain development. So we reached out to the U of R and let them know about our interest and our initiatives around mindfulness and our interest in being a partner with them. And they were incredibly excited about that opportunity to partner with our district. So that will be happening. And again, it's all voluntary from parents, obviously, and but we will be, or U of R will be sharing information with all of our 9 and 10-year-olds across our district. And not only do they perhaps get participants in the study, but they also are willing to come out to any school, any class, and talk about neuroscience, talk about brain chemistry, and they'll also have our students come to their state-of-the-art, probably one of the top 5 neuroscience labs in the world, and for our kids to be able to visit that lab. So we're really excited about that partnership. And that leads me to my final point. As I was talking with the 2 lead scientists from U of R, and as I was reflecting on my learnings from the conference on mindfulness and neuroscience, it occurred to me that I do think it's time for our district to really look at start times for high school and middle school students, and to have a very thoughtful, planful study at, okay, what does the science say? And if it says what perhaps Fairport found out and other districts have found out over the last couple of years, is there a way to perhaps have our older students in grades 6-12 start later so they can get some extra sleep. Have no idea what the answers will be. This is not a short-term study. If the board so wishes and they would like to formally charge myself to begin this committee work, it will most likely take much of this year, and changes probably wouldn't happen until the fall of 19 or the fall of 20. However, you have to start somewhere, and I do think it's time. So that ends my report.
Thank you, Carol. This kind of leads into our NSBA debrief. Kathy, could you find the slide that talks about the annual meeting? And throw that one up. One of the resolutions that the school boards passed at the annual meeting was a resolution indicating that later start times for middle and high school students would be appropriate. So that does tie in. And so, board members, I'm wondering if you would like to have a motion be made that directs the superintendent to begin, or to develop a committee to begin studying a later start time.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Motion is made then, and I hear a second.
And seconded.
Any discussion?
I think we've all been exposed through conferences and learning that there's substantial evidence supporting this. The circadian rhythms of kids, their inability to get to sleep at night, the impact of screen time, cell phones, iPads, in whether they're present or not, affects whether the kid is going to fall asleep in bed when they should or not. So the evidence is very, very overwhelming. So very supportive that we take a step and see what it could mean for our kids.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
So
We have a direction.
Okay. So
We would need to develop a
yep. So we'll develop a charge. And knowing that this was most likely going to happen, this would fit really well into our strategic planning. And I will ask Mr. Wall to help head that committee and to begin to lead that work. But we'll update the board probably within the next month in terms of a timeline and next steps. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We couldn't find the slides for the. Right. Well, I just wanted you to show the slide about the annual meeting because I highlighted that one. That was a resolution that was almost unanimously passed. It was probably a couple. That's all right. Don't worry about it. You can go back to the slide one. We'll just kind of randomly just go around because I know a number of us saw the keynote speaker. My particular takeaway from the keynote speaker was stop worrying about standardized test scores. We're doing great and everything else but the standardized test scores. And countries throughout the world are emulating the American education system, even though we have horrible, lackluster test scores, because we produce students who have talent beyond taking a test. And every student has a talent. That talent is worth developing, and the rest of the world, as the keynote speaker says, you want the most important form of success, which is moving your kids out of the basement. I love that. And I'm sure anybody else want to talk about the keynote speaker?
It was great.
So, Mike, the keynote speaker,
Yes.
Young
Zhao, will be coming to Fairport in March or April. And Mr. Provenzano, the superintendent in Fairport, reached out to myself and to Brian Neenan, I think last week, to see if we wanted to partner to do something, most likely at night.
Yep.
But so we're excited that he's coming in, and hopefully we'll be able to make that work for us.
Great.
The other thing he focused on a lot was the skills that kids will need in the future for the jobs that don't yet exist. And the creativity and problem solving were the types of skills that they'll need. He was outstanding.
he was the highlight, I thought.
And I liked his message about individualizing the skills that people will need in the future. Not everyone needs the same set of skills. I thought that was important.
Moving on to the Commissioner's report, Mary Ellen Elia delivered a status report about the new learning standards, the test reforms, the accountability plan, trying to comply with the federal government Every Student Succeeds Act is not an easy thing to do. The new standards aren't scheduled to be fully implemented until 2020. She felt the 2-day testing is a good step in being more responsive to not only teachers but the parents, and that she was very proud of the fact that this spring every question on the state test will have been written by a New York State teacher. And she was very proud of that. Moving on, individually, I went to a reaching out on building stronger relationships, and the big thing here was this district had Parent University. Now, we did have Parent University at one time, and I'd like to probably have some conversations with PTSA about bringing Parent University back. Both Linda and I went to the substance abuse and the heroin epidemic session, and you want to talk about a absolutely great speaker. They had this young lady, Courtney Lovell, who could have been any one of our students, and she went on to explain her situation, her addiction, and it brought us to tears. But the things that I got out of there was the fact that there are all sorts of environmental factors that can increase or even cancel out the impact of intervention, and that they felt that as you pursue new cures, do not forget about compassion, because it happens to be one of the oldest medicines that we have, and that the power to heal is immense when you have compassion, particularly when it involves the opioids.
So too, her message was we have to start educating children about issues of drug issues at a younger age. We don't address the problem as a society until there is a problem and it's too late. So I thought that was very powerful. Start getting the message out to the kids. I mean, her statistics, 9 out of 10 people with addiction started before they were 18. So it is a crisis. So she was extremely powerful, but was a woman who was able to come through it and is highly successful, and indicated that relapse occurred several times, but with love and compassion and a strong support system, she was able to come through it, and speaks all over the state now. So it was a very powerful.
Did you find it interesting, Linda, to watch 60 Minutes? I don't know if you watched 60 Minutes. Because one of the things the speaker was mentioning was that we have to look at drug dealers differently, and that drug dealers can be pharmaceutical companies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what does 60 Minutes talk about? How the pharmaceutical companies have really helped this epidemic. Mm-hmm. So it was really appropriate there.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let other people talk about their experiences.
Am I up? No. I guess most of my focus was on mental health, ACEs, and I didn't realize till we put everything together. So later start times came up in one of the classes, Mental Health 101, sleeping, because kids are up until all hours of the night because they're not able to fall asleep, and they're coming to school, and we need to address it. And mental health issues are just a huge issue with children. 50% of our school-age children come with mental health issues now. So we need to be more compassionate. We need to educate our educators on signs and symptoms as well. So that was a really interesting one as well.
And I heard Dr. Carolyn Mendel, who spoke on mental health issues. She did 2 different main sessions, and she was very informative, very interesting. a lot of good statistics. 1 in 5 of our students will have some type of mental health issue. 50% will happen before age 14. Talked about one of the things they're doing in certain communities, which I thought was pretty effective. They're trying to partner, sort of like what Carmen was talking about, hospitals and clinics with school districts, because what they find is so many people in need of services miss appointments. Mom and dad can't take off, don't have the car, have their own issues, etc. Whereas if you can put a clinician into a school that you're partnering with, you can, and it's all done with approval of parents, you can actually meet the student on a much more consistent basis in the school than relying on them getting there at 3 o'clock once a week or something like that. And they've, in the places where they've tried this, they feel they've had good success, and actually they have actually run some group social emotional programs within schools using students that have issue, and they think they have better academic results with it. So she's the head of the, I think it's called Child Mind Institute, and she's certainly worth following. I think that was some good ideas, and I'd like to see, you know, maybe this area would be ripe for something like that. We have some great hospitals here, and perhaps some partnering, community partnering would be good.
Yeah, we do that, by the way. Genesee Mental Health
comes in.
So we have a partnership with that group, and it's really been helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a great
2 years
idea.
now, Shelley? 2 years?
Yeah. The other one I was very interested in was analytics you can use by Queensberry, and they do a lot of data collecting like we do, but they do a lot of data sharing, and they start at both levels. They look at the board goals and collect data on the board goals regularly, as well as they look at what the community wants. It comes from the bottom up, and their theme pretty much was they treat data as a physical, not an autopsy. So they look at their data every 10 weeks, not at the end of the year or end of the session. And but they look at it very specific. It may just be 3 or 4 little items from the board goals, or 3 or 4 things that the community has said, and they try very, very much to share this data with the community through newsletters, in line graphs or bar graphs, and they found that that's been very receptive. They may just choose, you know, we're looking at graduation rate, or we're looking at career rates, or we're looking at college rates or something, but they try to share this with the community, things that has been expressed to them. And with the teachers, they try to get information to them on whatever it is they're studying that year every 10 weeks.
Bill, anything to add?
Friday was a long day, six workshops, an hour apiece, and they were falling a bit short of what we wanted. There were no workshops for new board members to really ramp you up. One of the workshops had potential. It was a combination of the freedom of information situation with open meeting law, and it didn't turn out to be a positive conversation. People were asking questions about specifics. So instead of getting an overview of the issues, you listen to each district discuss their specifics. One gentleman dozed off behind us, and we enjoyed listening to him snore.
Is that the one you took a picture of?
I wasn't taking any pictures of the gentleman.
He was being mindful.
The best workshops were Thursday, and the Webster team had a home run. Did a great job with their presentation on the technology initiative, and we slid out of that one and went into the Ithaca presentation with their superintendent, and how they built relationships with the superintendent and the board by hanging out together and avoiding open meeting restrictions by making it social, no business, and they created some real cohesiveness and have moved the district forward. So Thursday's sessions were very good. I would strongly suggest, and I actually have sent a couple of my thoughts to the people, about the commercials that we sat through, but also,
Oh, by the way, I talked to Tom, Ms. Becca. They are eliminating the commercials because it took away from the keynote speaker.
oh, it was embarrassing. Good, good.
They are, next year, they're going to eliminate it.
My other suggestion would be, there needs to be 10, 15% for new board members that are getting their feet on the ground and are looking for basic information. And you never knew when you signed up if you were going to get that or not, so. But it was a good trip, for sure.
Timmy, you want to line things up?
I think primarily the workshops I enjoyed the most dovetailed into current practices that we have here. And one of them was the board and superintendent relationship. Open communication, a relationship based on trust, that there should be constant email updates and no surprises and those kinds of things that sound obvious, but on a day-to-day basis are very important, and so many of those things are already occurring. The budget development process was very much in line with what we do in terms of around academics, operation, administrative, and you build a budget around your mission and vision and your goals. And it's the numbers kind of fill in the blank. So it was a process that is very much in alignment with what we do. And then I downloaded a few others that were in conflict. So it felt like I had a rounded out experience. Young Zhao is definitely
The highlight.
definitely the best. One read his book.
Yeah.
But thank
In
you.
all, it was a great day and a half. We were there so fast, but yeah.
Well, next year's in New York.
Yes.
So keep it on your plate. And we'll see what happens.
We learned a lot.
Hoping.
No, next year is New York,
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
which
Thank you.
creates its own problems because in New York, you've got to get to the workshops you want to get to because their rooms are so small, you get knocked out real quick. It's one of the problems there.
And that happened a little bit.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
let's move on to our audit. Well, we'll highlight a few things so that Brian doesn't have to talk so much.
I can go right into it.
Well, the first is that our Government Accounting Standards Board, which is known as GASB. We're now required to report the projected amount that the district owes in healthcare premium payments on behalf of future and current retirees. So this is going to look like it's a real negative, but it really doesn't have any impact. It just looks bad on paper. We also have the unassigned fund balance is at 3.98, which happens to be below the legal threshold, so that's good. And we've added to our general fund reserve and debt service reserve, but we had to spend from our tax certiorari to settle some challenges. And now, Brian, I'll let you go into all the details.
Sure, thank you. So everybody's got a copy of our 2016-17 audit. I'm just going to piggyback on a few of the highlights that are in the 67 pages that you have in your booklet. You're going to see a lot of negatives in the start, and that is because we had to adopt new accounting standards. And in essence, what happens is our other post-employee benefit liability, so what we owe our current employees and our current retirees, do an actuarial count of how long they're going to live, what those total costs are. We now have to account for those on our financial statements.
You know how long I'm going to live?
Mathematically speaking, I have a very good estimate.
Share that with me after the meeting, would you? Yeah.
So that's a very large number, and it dwarfs our operating budget, everything. But we have to report it now going forward, so it makes us look like we have a significant loss on our balance sheets. It's a requirement of every district. Every district is going to look like this with a significant negative position, but there's no financial impact to the district. It's really just on paper, and the bond agencies aren't that, where we get our interest rates when we go to borrow for buses or for capital projects are not taken into account. So I just wanted, that's one point as you read through that to go to sleep at night. You see all these negative numbers. That's a huge reason why. From a financial perspective, on page 15 of here, we'll give you, like Mr. Suffalo said, we added some to our general fund reserves. That's right on page 15. we spent out of our tax statutory, and we added a little to our debt service reserve as well. Our unassigned fund balance is right at that 4% legal threshold. And one change you'll notice this year, new reporting requirements, is we have to calculate and report all the pilot agreements that we receive through Comida or I forget what the even new name of the group is now. But Imagine, thank you. What those agreements, what the impact is on the district. So you'll see those there. I thought those were interesting points of a net loss of tax revenue and net loss of sales tax revenue, what those agreements do. We now are required to report that on our financial statements. Findings, there's 4 findings that the auditors said we can improve on. One is our EBLAR reserve. That has been on continuously because we cannot spend it down fast enough to get to the threshold they want to in any other manner. So it's a long out process. We spend what we can, but it's still not getting us to the point where we have to. So that's a long-term one. Aquatic Center, we had some issues last year. They found no issues this year, but we also had our internal auditors look at that last year, and our external auditors just said follow the recommendations of the internal auditor. Banking, very concerned with cyber issues. Would like to see us dedicate a sole source computer for all of our online banking, and we're in the process of setting that up. And then the 4th thing was the school lunch fund. Saw a significant operating loss for 16-17, a little bit more than what we had thought. 3 reasons really why. 1 was planned with the installation of the greenhouse. 2, the snow days. We had 5 snow days, but if you look at the impact of the in-between and that week with power being out, we saw participation really in that, especially on that Monday. How we went back to school on Monday and then had the 2 snow. That Monday was almost like a 6th lost day. So we lost a substantial amount of revenue from that. The other is a timing issue and when we get our government commodities. We had more commodities at the end of the year last year than we did this year. So it looks like a loss to us. So those were the 4 findings. You have in front of you the corrective action plan I developed for your approval that we will report to the comptroller and to SED moving forward. So any questions on the audit overall? When we met with the audit committee just about
2 weeks ago.
2-3 weeks ago now, and went over the report in a little bit more detail. So.
The sole computer for business or for banking transactions,
Correct.
Are they worried about passwords, or would you anticipate specific software on that one computer?
Anything, so if somebody perhaps downloaded any kind of document onto their normal computer, and perhaps
that
could be the open gate to anything.
So the assumption is whoever's on this banking computer, they're not using it for personal email?
Yep.
Okay.
It's locked down. It can only go out to our bank websites and nothing else.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so this basically takes care of numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. So may we have a motion to accept the audit report, which includes the external audit, the management rep letter, and the corrective action plan?
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now we'll move on to our budget status report. I think we have a budget of $168 million, and I think we've spent $300 million so far, or $30 million? Yeah, $300 million. Don't we wish?
You could say it. I'm fired. What you have is the timing is all the first quarter reports, the line item for where we stand for across the district wide of where we're spending. So we're a quarter of the way through. You also, besides that, there's no real surprises on that report. That's just the quarterly update for the first few months. You also have all the budget transfers that we do between lines for anything that's popped up or need to be adjusted, and all the revenues as well updated. You have a more specific revenue report now once we get into the school year than what you see I present during budget season, because it comes in totally differently than the way we plan for it. Like, you don't see lottery aid when we budget, because lottery aid is spread out amongst different budgeting categories, if that makes sense. Like textbook aid, I show you during budget season textbook aid, but when it comes in, some of that textbook aid is lottery aid. So it gets all jumbled up. So you'll see a lot more specificity in those revenue reports to show you line by line where it's coming in. Any questions on those reports?
All right, so that's taken care of 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have a motion to accept the status report as well as the transfers.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report.
So treasurer's report, this is for the month of September, and you'll start noticing this is our first tax collection payment. So you'll see a little bit of help with cash flow. So the bottom line overall for the district starts to improve going forward now that we're collecting tax revenue.
No questions there? May we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have something to take a look at in order to maintain some efficiencies in our hardware and equipment and our systems. It is being recommended that we approve a resolution that incorporates into the bidding process for our capital projects that we standardize all the systems, hardware, whatever. Brian, you want to?
So yes, what I'm asking for the Board of Education to do is pass this resolution. We're about 2 months away from having the first phase of our capital project approved. So this part, we're planning our bid documents. So once we get approved, we bid it out to the prime contracts, your plumbers, your HVAC, your electricians, and your general contractors. But there's certain things that we have inherently built into our systems. Same HVAC controls, same type of boiler system, same type of piping, same types of doors, stuff that we've standardized over the years. If we did not do the standardization resolution, when they go to bid, they could give us anything. So in essence, you could, we have a Ford and they're going to give us GM parts and there's nothing we can do about it because they're the lowest bidder. However, you pass a standardization resolution, we put that into the bid documents, they have to bid with the specific stuff we're requesting to maintain that consistency throughout the district. So we itemize the list of things that possibly could be impacted by this project, so we want to make sure we covered them all and had the standardization resolution performed.
How did we get to the point where we haven't done this before?
We have. Depending on what the project is and what's happening, there's a lot of mechanicals with this project, with the boiler systems, the HVACs, so it's going to impact a lot more. Like than the previous project, we did roofs. Not a lot of that type of stuff is going to get impacted when we do roofs, but we're getting into the guts of all of our buildings with this project.
And the advantage of having standard equipment is better for repair?
Repairs, trainings,
okay.
Our guys are all performed on that one thing.
Yeah.
They know it. They don't have to go learn something else and have competing systems against each other.
Okay, I figured that.
Other questions? Then may we have a motion, please, to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If you take a look at the budget outline, I just want to point out a couple of dates. February 1, the board gets a draft of the tax levy, and then by March 1st, Brian has to submit a tax levy calculation to the state. On April 12th, the board will adopt the budget. On May 3rd, there will be a public hearing on the proposed budget, with May 15th being the public vote on the proposed budget. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be really emphasized there? All right, and Brian, you just want to do your budget overview?
Sure, I
real
just
quick?
want to give everybody, we're officially kicking off budget season now. The other day, we sent out all of our budget building documents to all of our buildings and our directors and all the groups that start to prepare as we look into 18-19. So I just wanted to give everybody a quick overview. What are we hearing right now? What do we expect this year might look like as far as state aid, what tax cap, and some of our costs and what our process really looks like. So first, foundation aid If we let the formula run, Webster would have an additional $7.2 million. I don't think that's going to happen for next year. We'll see how it's going to be parsed out. So state aid is up in the air with that. There are some rumors circulating around that we might not get our state aid run in January. Just want to get everybody possibly prepped for that when the governor does his. There's a rumor floating around. The governor is very intrigued on how the federal government is working, passing spending bills on an ongoing basis, and might want to incorporate that into how the state works. So that's something that's come out of some of the legislative committees that I've heard and seen. So that's something to keep an eye on. But the other thing is this budget will proceed directly into the 2018 election cycle as well, though. So it's hopeful maybe those are always, boom years for funding throughout the state. So possible maybe we get some bump from there. But that's a general overview of what we're hearing so far on the state aid side. For tax revenue, last year we were just at 2% for our cap, but the consumer price index, which is a huge part of the formula, is trending higher. 1.26 last year. It is getting closer to a full 2%. Our tax-based growth factor is another huge part of the formula. Should be a little higher than the 1.09% we had last year. And just as a rough estimate, so every 1% increase that we do on the levy raises roughly $1 million in revenue. Pension and benefits, right now TRS is at 9.8%. Can it go lower? Not after we got today. It's actually going to go up a little bit. So the years of savings on TRS, they're estimating it's going to go to 10.5% to 11% next year. So it's either a slight increase, anywhere to a 1.2% increase on the teacher's retirement system. The employee retirement system still hasn't determined what they're going to be at, but right now they're at 15.5%. They've had strong market returns. I think it could go lower, so hopefully we could possibly save some money there. Benefits-wise, our retiree plans have come back down from a couple years of being extremely high. The increases for next year are going to be much smaller than in previous years, so our budget won't increase as much in that line item that it has in previous years because of that. The trend had been in the mid-teens, and now it's back down to the single digits, so that'll help out a little bit. And the active plans increase is going to be 8.5% for next year. That is almost a full 3% less than when we were sitting this time last year going into this budget cycle. So smaller increase. Anytime a smaller increase to me is almost a savings, I'll take it. So that's where we're at on some of the big ticket items. So our process, we begin in November. We follow these objectives, what's best for students, aligning with mission and vision and core beliefs. Trying to strive for all of this through our budget process, all these objectives. We use a zero-based budgeting process, so what is truly needed to maintain our programs on a year-to-year basis. We start our discussions through December and January with all of our stakeholders. We make them do a line item justification. Staffing is based on program needs and enrollment. We have our budget advisory committee recommendations, and then finally presentations to the Board of Education for what our budget recommendations would be. Questions on anything from the budget so far?
And Bill and Jan, you're going to learn more about this on Saturday.
A lot more. 8 hours worth.
There's a new board member function for you.
Just what I was hoping.
It's the best one, too.
Yeah, I'm sure, I think Lou Alama's doing that training.
Yeah, Lou Alama.
We'll do a nice job for you.
Honey Night Falls. Bruce is.
You like Lou?
Yeah.
He's
Lou's a Webster guy.
Yeah, so he makes sure we double look at Webster's budget. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, board members, we'll move on to our liaison reports. Linda, do you have anything to report from your?
Are we at Plink South? Yes, Plink South. The next meeting is November 14th at 7 o'clock. This past Sunday, they had trunk or treat. It's been a beautiful October, and of course, Sunday was the worst day ever, but they still showed up.
To a dry trunk or treat.
Really? The first year it was 75 degrees. It was so hot. Since I left, it's only rained, so. But people showed up. They did it. They also have a book fair coming up November 13th to 16th, and an open house on the 16th. And they are looking into starting a Lego League, so that's really exciting. And School 17 gift giving is just around the corner because the holidays are coming. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Jan?
I went to the Clem North PTSA meeting, October, and Laura Blue, the principal, and Denise Lemke, vice principal, did a wonderful presentation on responsive classroom in the morning meeting they're using, and all of us that were there actually got to participate in some of the activities. This Friday is a family movie night in Moana at 7 o'clock. And the next meeting will be Monday, November 13th, 6:30 in the library. And Sue also left me some notes. She had to leave about Schlegel and wanted me to make sure to mention that this Saturday is the craft fair at 10 a.m. starting at Schlegel. And next PTSA meeting is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, November 14th for Schlegel.
Thank you. Bill, anything?
Plank North will be meeting November 13th at 6:30, and Bill Kent will be making his famous chocolate chip cookies.
Ooh.
So if you've never had one of those, you should consider stopping by Plank
November
North.
13th. Ooh, there's a lot of PTSA meetings that day.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mike, I'll bring you a cookie.
Tammy?
There's also a DeWitt PTSA meeting on the 13th. Roller skating parties are underway. They had a bus driver appreciation event at DeWitt, so they wanted to take care of their own fleet. And they're collecting items for an internal food shelf program. So there's a need for that, and the school community will fill that need. All
Thank
good.
you. Clem South has a dance tomorrow night, and their next PTSA meeting is Wednesday, November 15th. And speaking of dances, Willink recently had their Halloween dance. I was able to stop in for a few moments, and I have to report it was the largest dance the school has ever had. They had almost 400 kids at that dance, which is really, really a good number. I would say about, yeah.
Between 900 and 1,000.
You want to know how loud it was?
How long did you stay, Mike?
About 5 minutes. Enough to grab a cookie and some cider, and that was it. And both Spry and Willink's 8th graders are going on their Washington trip next week. And let's move on now to our Monroe County. All right. Actually, before we do that, on Monday, there's coffee with the administrator at HW at Schrader. Are you interested in going to that?
Sure.
Because I'll also go.
What time is that?
It's 7 o'clock,
Okay.
Monday, November 6th. On the 8th, on Wednesday, there's Central PTSA. Will you be able to go to that?
Wednesday the 8th, yes.
Because I have a board president's meeting that I'll be going to, so you'll have to give the board report. Great. Anyone going to the Veterans Dinner on Thursday? I'm going to stop in for just a few minutes.
I'm going to do the same thing.
All right. And then on the 13th, we heard DeWitt, Clem North, Plank North, PTSA. That's all covered? Okay. Are you going to be able to cover State Road?
I'm going to state the next night on the 14th.
Okay, and I'm sure Sue's got Schlegel covered. Now, on the 15th, Clem South has a PTSA meeting, which I could go to, but there's also the Schrader National Honor Society induction. So we really need a board member attending that. So I can either attend the PTSA or the National Honor Society, but somebody will have to cover for the one I don't go to.
I'll try to do the Schrader one if you want me to.
All right, you're going to do the National Honor Society? Okay.
I'm going to write my speech.
You're going to be presenting?
The keynote.
Could I do the PTSA?
You want to, if you want to do the P,
No,
it's,
he's teasing.
no, he will speak, but I mean, and
I'm going to do it in poem, in rhyme.
just to remind everyone that the November 16th through 18th is the fall drama, so you might want to check that out. All right, so Monroe County School Boards Association, legislative. A couple of things that kind of fits in what Brian was talking about. The comptroller has issued a report that speaks to the state tax collections. They're falling short of what the projections are, so that may have an impact. He's also talking about the fact, you heard a little bit, that the federal government and Governor Cuomo is projecting his budget to be probably $4 billion less than expected. The House of Representatives approved a resolution that allows for the elimination of state and local tax deductions. That's going to have an effect. As a matter of fact, Monroe County School Boards is joining with 4 county school boards to develop a statement about the impact that eliminating these state and local deductions will have on public education. Also, the Office of Charter Schools has approved a proposal to allow their own schools to certify their teachers. So the commissioner has reacted very negatively to this proposal, and so is Monroe County School Boards Association. And SED has issued some guidance for students who have been displaced by a recent natural disaster. I think Webster has a few students, yes. So we'll be taking a look at that. All right, labor relations. Am I doing that one too? I guess I am. The topic was about retirement incentives, and we heard about the negotiations that you consider regarding offering incentives. The big thing that was stressed was that the negotiators need to understand that it's the Board of Education's core objectives for the incentive, not the other way around. He strongly implied that incentives were a tool for achieving the board's objectives and not an outcome in itself. The presentation was videotaped, so if you want to see it, you can take a look at it on the Monroe County School Boards Association website. All right, information. Bill or Tammy, do you guys want to? It was a really good one.
That was a good one. So the principal and assistant principal from the Rochester International School?
Academy.
Rochester International Academy. Just a great presentation. She brought, so the school works with refugee students. And so she started out by having 4 of her students with her, and they got up in front of the audience and in their own language. They were from Somalia, and I can't remember, might have been Nepal, I can't remember, but they asked us to rise for the pledge and say the pledge with them, and of course we all sat in our seats because we had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. And the experience was, this is exactly what the children are experiencing when they're walking into your classroom for the first time, and they can't speak English. And so it really gave a wonderful insight into the job that our ESOL teachers are doing to try and bring these kids up to speed. She was exceptionally passionate about what she did. Oh my, and her commitment time-wise is just 25 hours a day. It was
and the
amazing.
Social and emotional impact of it, she said, like when it's Halloween, we have to tell kids what that means because they're walking around the streets. And so just the real life examples that we don't think about.
How to use a toilet.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my God.
Yeah.
The fact that people were standing on the toilet seat, not understanding how it worked. And the conversation, the one girl who, after 16 years, it was the first day that she hadn't spent the entire day with her mother. And so the mother had a cell phone and called school 24 times in one 8-hour period to make sure your daughter was okay. So it just was just so powerful. It was a great conversation about good things happening in the city schools. So very, very nice.
And the power of bringing all those kids together. So they had been in their neighborhood schools or school of choice throughout the district, but they decided they could better serve all of the children in one building, and they do, and just bring in a whole lot more resources. So definitely the kids benefit from that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I think we videotaped that one also, so if you want to take a look at the Monroe County School Board site, you can see it. All right, we'll move on to our standing committees. We heard about audit today. Policy, Sue's not here, but
She left me her notes, just to share that we had our first meeting prior to this meeting, and we will be bringing a few action items to our next regular meeting on December 7th.
okay. Larry, do you have anything on strategic plan?
So this is on behalf of Sue. So many positive changes have been happening for our students and teachers across the district that we'd like to get a group together to help us imagine how to make the most of these changes. With our one-to-one technology initiative, our work on essential skills and mindfulness, our new model for professional learning, and the overall shift toward more student-directed learning, we're truly creating a new schoolhouse. We'd like to invite interested stakeholders across the district to participate in this conversation, and we'll have our first meeting December 7th from 4 to 5:30. Look for more information soon.
Do you know
Thanks.
where?
It will be Conference Room B at District Office.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into our public consent agenda. Board members, you've had an opportunity to look at it. It includes the minutes of our October 5th meeting and a workshop. It includes personnel actions. It includes recommendations on the Committee on Special Education, as well as the Committee on Preschool Special Education. It also includes an overnight trip to Paris. Oh, how nice. There are some trash bids, as well as a cooperative bid for fine paper.
Real collection of agenda items
It certainly
today.
is. But do you want to spend the next...
No, sir, I do not.
I mean, we can take each one individually, Bill.
I'd like to talk about the trash situation for half an hour.
All right, there'll be a really trashy talk.
That's why you hired him, Bill.
Or not.
All right, may we have a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Just to point out that we do have a workshop meeting on November 16th with our next regularly scheduled meeting on December 7th. With that being said, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Go
We are-
Bills.
We are adjourned. Good night, everyone.